Raise your hand if you've ever said right now you're not going to get a cookie, or if you don't stop yelling, we're not going to the park. So yeah, we've all been there. And honestly, in a moment, the strategies can just fall apart. And it can feel like yelling is your only option, or bribing or threatening is your only option. But I want to gently remind you of some differences between bribes and incentives, and how what it all means for us. So let's start with bribes and incentives, because we get these two mixed up quite a bit. So bribes tend to be very reactive. Usually they happen in a moment of desperation. That's when you're like, if you stop whining, I'll buy you a toy, or something like that. And so really what the child gets from that is that if they act out, then they get something good happens. And they're not cognitively making that, but it was kind of like what we're teaching in it. And that's not the message that we want to give. So let's compare that to an incentive, which is more planned out. It's setting the expectations. It's like, if you get ready for school on time all week, then this is what we're going to do. If this happens, then this happens, but it's planned. It's not reactionary. It's not in the moment. A lot of times it's the first and then. First we have to do this, then we can do this. So it helps with their cognitive thinking. It helps with cause and effect. It's a really big difference, really, because bribes reward undesired behavior, and incentives encourage the desired behavior even before it starts. And it really helps with motivation, and it's like what it means. It's an incentive, where a bribe is just for the moment, like it's more of appeasement. So when we look at the bigger picture, why is it that bribes, rewards, punishments, threats often fall short or fall flat? And especially with kids who are neurodivergent or have experienced trauma, reward charts, behavior charts, you have to be really careful, right? And a lot of that is because these kids, they tend to be a little bit more focused on control, and it's not really about connection. So most kids, especially if they've got different wiring, or they've been hurt or misunderstood or overwhelmed, they don't respond well if they want to be in control of it, even their bad behaviors. Like they will have the bad behavior to almost show that they can still be in control of how you're going to act, and all of it. So I've seen a lot of kids just like not even care about a reward chart, or a threat, or whatever. Even when a threat seems really bad, it's like they're not holding space in their mind for that, of what's happening at the moment. And we really want to make sure that we're connecting, and that we're helping them to really develop that part of their brain that can hold that information of like, if this happens, this happens. And the other reason why it doesn't really work over the long haul is because this really relies on external motivation. And we have to do that. At first, we have to kind of be their external, frontal lobe, and help them through that. But rewards are even more short-term. They're just for short-term compliance, and they don't stick, and they don't build the habits. And so we want to be careful that even in rewards, that we're not just we're not building something that's they're only doing it for this. Like we want to build in those habits. That's why I like using first and then, rather than you do this and then you're going to get a reward. Because if you think about it, like that's kind of how life works. Like first I work, then I get paid, or first we work and then we can play. It's the same. It teaches that kind of intrinsic, like I need to do this. It may be unpleasant, but I can get through it, and then I get this. And that's more intrinsic than outside of like, you're just doing something to get a reward, and you're not really tied into it as much. It's like, it's just more short term. That doesn't teach the skills that we want to teach. Punishment is like this, especially. We we tell a child what not to do in punishment, but it doesn't necessarily teach them what to do instead. And often the challenging behavior, there's a skill gap, not a motivation problem. They're not really connecting the dots, like if this happens, then this is going to happen. So even in our consequences, which is another name for punishment, a lot of times it shouldn't be, but because it really could be cause and effect. Like if this happens, then this is going to happen. That's what we want to teach. And then a lot of times with reward and punishments, we're not teaching that. Like the focus is on the punishment or the reward, and it's not necessarily on what they could do. It also wants you to consider that it's a lot easier to teach a child to do something that we want them to do than to get somebody to stop doing something. So if I'm constantly like, stop doing this, stop doing that, it's just more challenging than if I am saying, and less helpful than if I am telling a child, like, please come sit down, please do this, rather than stopping it. A child who can't sit still a lot of times could just be struggling with sensory needs. So sometimes we just need to have some understanding of like, this is like they've been sitting here doing this for a while, they've had a hard day at school or whatever, and then helping them to use that energy in a better way. Where if we're just like, oh, I had to tell you 3 times to do this, so that's 3 bad marks, so just looking at like what's going on. It can backfire. Rewards and punishment can backfire. I've seen it a lot with the kids I work with, but they're a little bit more edgy and more willing to throw away a reward chart or to throw away a whole week of rewards if they mess up, there's now and not now, so it's really challenging to have it mean anything. And then the other thing is, a lot of times is our the way we look at behavior and trying to reward good behavior or punish or make threats against bad behavior is that it can trigger like shame and fear and even defiance, because a lot of defiance is like it's a harder, stronger emotion, more accessible to a child than fear or insecurity or overwhelm, or even feeling like I can't do it. That's the shame. Like I'm bad, so I might as well be really bad. And all of that can kind of trigger it. And so when we're just working with what we're doing right now, and we're doing first and then, and that can really help. They don't necessarily learn the lessons that we want them to learn. They're not able sometimes to actually cooperate, and so we have to help them to learn what that means. We'll say things to kids like, you need to have more respect, or you need to cooperate, or you need to whatever it is that we think they need, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's like, what does that mean for right now? What do I need you to do right now? Stop, listen, do. And rather than using terms like, you're ignoring me and that's disrespectful, or you're being rude, just things that don't really tie in for a child. Maybe it's not, sometimes not because they don't want to, but because they literally can't. If you have read my book, I have the mountain of escalation, and the higher kids are on the mountain of escalation, and that can even just be their brains. It doesn't even necessarily mean that they're physically like escalated that you might be able to see, but if their brains are not calm enough, they literally cannot follow directions. They might immediately like sit down, but then a second later they're jumping up again. So if those tools that you've used, like punishments, rewards, are not working, then what does help? And we know that connection is really critical. Last week's video was all about connection and why it's so important. We know that problem solving together is really helpful, like helping kids to think through the options. The more stressed they are, the less, it's like, why did you do that kind of questions? It creates more stress, and it's like they don't know. They just saw that thing and that's what they picked up and threw, or whatever it was. Like they, did it like they were thinking it out. Like, we know our kids are not great at using the executive functioning skills to plan things out. So I think we need to realize, like, this is like just what came to them in the moment. We're not trying to manage their behavior as much as we're trying to help them to work through that, whatever's going on in their brain, the reactionary part of their brain, or the emotion, to come up with some solutions together or to provide those solutions. You can do it depends on where your child is and how much you've been working with them on this. So even if they're really mad at somebody, instead of, like telling them like, well, you need to apologize or, whatever, it's like help them figure out, like, I can tell you're really mad. Like, what are some things we could do? And their first few ideas might be really crazy. I'm never going to talk to him again. Or it's like, oh, really? Okay, well, that's one way. Like, what else could we do to solve this? So getting out of the, like, here's another example, like getting out of the door has been really challenging lately, like trying to get ready in the morning. What are some things that we could do to make this easier, that might make it go better? So but these are things that can't be done in the moment. In the moment we're all too fired up, right? So knowing how you're going to handle it ahead of time is really important, and then having those times when you can problem solve, like, wow, it's been a really rough week, like, is there something that we could do, starting tomorrow that would make it easier? Like, how can this go better, and helping them to see that. And that builds the trust, and it gives them some real problem solving skills. It doesn't mean that we're going to do things always the way that they want. And doesn't mean that we can always have a discussion about it. So these are discussions that are best, like, done in different times, not at the moment when you're like, why aren't you getting ready? I think it helps a lot to remember that it's all skill building, right? And rewards, threats, punishments don't necessarily teach the skills. When we're using incentives, then we're teaching so many skills, like impulse control, delayed gratification. And so at first it may have to be really small. It may have to be, if we can do these 3 things this morning, then we get to go to the park, or, something more simple, rather than if you have 5 good days, then this is going to happen. These are, a lot of times they can't carry in their mind all of that. And then if they have a bad moment, like, everything is lost, and then you're really stuck. So keeping it small, I really like the idea of it's never too late to turn things around, and helping kids to work through that. Using natural consequences is really critical, not artificial ones. And I've talked about this before, rather than just taking the phone away. Like, how do we help kids to, have something that's tied into it? If you're unkind with your friends, or you didn't get your things done at home, like, it doesn't always mean that we have to take that away from them, but we may have to work on what is directly related. If they forget their coat, they're going to feel cold. That's natural. But you didn't hang up your coat, so now you're grounded. It doesn't make sense to them and to anybody, really. So work on how to do that as part of it, and to not be shaming about it. Like, see, I told you. It's just like, oh yeah, it's a bummer, isn't it? We'll have to try to remember that tomorrow, and giving that opportunity, like, we're not so fazed by it. Kids feel proud of their efforts, and we want them to feel that, right? Like, the effort, not just the outcome, but how hard they tried and how much they're working. And I love how you keep going even when it's hard. That kind of thing is so different than just rewarding them for getting a good grade, or something like that. Letting their motivation kind of grow from within, like, wow, you worked the whole 20 minutes that the timer was on. That is so cool. And you got it done before the timer went off, or whatever it is, pointing out what it is that they actually did, rather than you're such a good, you're so good at that, or you're good job, but we can do more to build kind of that intrinsic, like, need, like, more punishments, prizes. They need us to kind of connect with them on that level, and that helps to build compliance. It helps to build their delayed gratification. It increases their ability to withhold that impulsiveness that we see in our kids, where it's like now and not now. We have to shift from just managing behaviors to helping them to maintain growth. And that's when everything starts to change, when we start seeing, like, this is not in the moment that it's a teaching opportunity, but this shows us where they are and how can we help them to get there. And that's a lot about what parent coaching is about, is like helping you to get the results that you want, instead of feeling like I don't know what to do, and you're trying to figure it out in the moment. So these are just some things that can really help you to make it work better. It's not being permissive to not have punishment. It's about being intentional, and kids, they really need that. You're not giving in by providing incentives. You're helping them, and you're not giving in when you're avoiding this more punitive way of thinking about it. You're giving your child the chance to learn and develop, and you're helping them to do that and to feel good about themselves in the process as they're learning. So that's for today. If you want more help like this, I really encourage you to go to parentingchallengingkids.com and look on the website and look at the coaching packages that are available to you and get the help that you need. You can start with a free call with me, and you can find that form on the Get Started page. I will have the link below, and you can get help individually. You can get help with our parent group, the playroom. There's lots of different options for you. And we'll talk to you later. Thank you.